Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and this is a tutorial on how to make a moss terrarium. A terrarium that has, well, predominantly moss in it. And it's an interesting variation on terrariums, and they can be kind of attractive. There's a few different ways you can do it, and I'm going to do this one just in soil. And you also can do it by putting the moss onto flat stones like this, which I have done, and I do have a tutorial on that, where you place the moss on stones in your terrarium. I do have a tutorial on that on my website, and I'll put the URL in the description so you can see it. But here, let's take a look at this completed terrarium so you can see what we end up with. So let me go over the materials you need and give you some rules of thumb here. You're going to need, of course, some moss. And you can buy moss. I have a link on my website where you can buy it from Amazon.com, from Hertz Gardens. You're going to need some soil, some small stones, water in a spray bottle, because moss, you actually don't really water it. What you do is you mist it once or twice a day. It likes that a lot better. And you're going to need a container to put your moss, to make in your terrarium in, and maybe some accents that you want. And what I did was I painted this little miniature here. It's like a ranger or a hunter with his little bow and everything, and I'm going to put him in the terrarium. And that's everything you need. So let me talk about containers here first a little bit. When you're doing a moss terrarium, see, you have the mosses in big chunks, and you can even get bigger chunks than this. You can't really do it in a small container like this. Well, in a container with a small opening. And I love this container, but I may use this for a ship in a bottle or something like that. But this one might work. See how this opening is a little bigger? So this could make a nice moss terrarium, maybe like that on the side. This one's excellent, and this mason jar is nice too. But I'm going to use this one, this nice bowl here. It's almost like a fish bowl. About a 1 quart fish bowl. Really nice, I like that one. So I'm going to make it in that. So that's one thing to consider when you're making your moss terrarium, is have a nice open top so you can get your hand in there and you can work the moss and work the various things. Now, a moss terrarium can be a little bit tricky to take care of. So what I recommend is, let's say you have a container that closes with the top on it, like this one does. Right? You can try, once you've set it all up and you've wet it, you've watered it, and you've sprayed it, you can close it off, but monitor it closely. You may have to open it regularly to mist the moss to keep it moist. The moss really likes to be misted a couple of times a day if possible. So you got to watch that. Otherwise, keep an open terrarium, and that way you can just monitor the water level in it, the levels of moisture. So it's real simple. You put yourself a layer of small pebbles in the bottom of your container, say about 1 inch. That's for drainage. It'll keep the soil from getting unusually wet. Then you put a layer of soil, and you really don't need that much soil. If you notice, if you're out looking for moss, I would say the best thing you can do is try to simulate the conditions that the moss is growing in. Like, for instance, moss can grow just on a layer of stone on walls and stuff like that with just a little bit of soil. So you can do that. Right? You could put this in here and put the moss right on top of that and see how it works. When you're out hunting for moss, and say you dig some up and you bring it in the house, you have to be real careful with that moss. Examine it really carefully, shake it out really good, make sure there's no insects in it. So insects or eggs. That can happen. It happens a lot. There's a lot of different types of insects that will live underneath this layer of moss. And while you really don't want to, you'd want to minimize the risk of bringing those into the house. Particularly, I would not recommend like adding moss. You have to be really careful if you're adding moss to an existing terrarium. That's a big consideration, because you may add the insects to it. Now, I'm not going to show you all of this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep arranging these pieces of moss around until I get an arrangement that I'm satisfied with. So, I will show you. I'll show you more. But a nice thing here is that the way I've put this on a stone there makes it much easier to line it up and get it just right. Okay, there's the finished terrarium. Looks pretty good. So I get my little figure, I get the moss, I pack the moss in nice, and I recommend don't make it flat. Put a nice shape to it. Put a little bit of variance in the shape. Mine tends to curve around a little bit, which is really nice. It makes it interesting to look at. I also added something called a couple of micro miniature Syningia flowers. Just thought that was kind of nice. I put them right in the middle, if you can see that right here. 2 of them. 2 flowers right in the middle, and I think that looks kind of nice. So that's the moss terrarium. Came out pretty good, and it's not hard to do. You probably can do it in an hour, including time to gather up some moss. Now we have to, and now that I've got a flower in it, I'll have to water it too. But you really like to mist that moss. Moss likes to be misted a couple of times a day, at least once a day, and keep an eye on it. So I have this tutorial and a tutorial on how to use slate on my website at stormthecastle.com, and I will pop the URL for that is in the description of this video.